In an effort to misdirect away from the barbarism that is pervading college campuses right now, here comes No Justice, No Peace Maxine Waters and other mouthpieces to tell Americans scary stories about things that go bump in the night.
This is a man who we'd better be careful about. And I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask the Justice Department and I'm going to ask the president to tell us what they're going to do to protect this country against violence if he loses. I want to know about all of those right-wing organizations that he's connected with who are training up in the hills somewhere and targeting, what communities they're going to attack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, does the FBI know about this?
The FBI doesn't because they're focused on Catholics who attend the Latin Mass. But they're now going to look, I'm sure, at the urging of Maxine Waters, up into the hills for these conservative Huns that are, salted away somewhere, plotting which population centers they will attack as soon as Trump is installed as the president of the United States again. But you have to. What else do they have to sell? It's funny because against rhetoric like that, you have this hagiographic Vanity Fair piece on the Biden brain trust. We're not selling hysteria. The cold calculation and unyielding optimism of the Biden brain trust. And you get these rhetorical flourishes from Jen Dillon, who's Biden's campaign manager, in the piece. Like, we have to keep my eye on the most. I have to keep my eye on the most important thing. We're keeping focused on the most important thing, which is a future for my kids. That's what's at stake. But they're not selling hysteria. No, Maxine Waters isn't selling hysteria. She's not trying to get you to avert your eyes from the border or from your nearest college campus and be frightened about the unseen that is just around the corner waiting to pounce and enslave you and your children and so on and so forth. I don't think it's going to work, partly because, unfortunately, for this crowd, they've been a good job. They've done a good job, the left has, of careening us from one moral panic to the other. But the problem with the Trump hysteria that they're trying to instigate is he was already president. I just go back to this. It's pretty simple because I think most people are sort of commonsensical and they may not have great institutional memory, but they can remember to 2016 to 2020. And, as people are revealing in the polling that's been done, things were a little bit better for me back in 16 to 20 with Trump. Yeah, I don't really like the guy, or I don't like his tweets, or this or that. I remember this incident, or that statement he made, or that particular policy that I'm misremembering because of how it was demonized by the press and distorted and demonized by the press. But the net is, do I think that he's a tyrant? Do I think this is the end of the republic if Trump is reelected? No. No, who really believes that? You have to really repeat. Though. Yeah, you have to repeat that to yourself a lot of times, and you have to be really incentivized to do so, like with spots on cable news shows, with re-election, with campaign financing, in order to try to, peddle that snake oil. I think it's just I just don't think it's going to work. And maybe that's a smokescreen for another smokescreen that has more to do with the mechanics of elections. But that's a topic for another time. Let's talk a little bit more about campus culture with Rod Dreher. His Substack is at Rod Dreher, Dreher. He's a contributing editor and former senior editor for the American Conservative. He's the author of the New York Times bestsellers, Live Not by Lies, The Benedict Option, and The Little Way of Ruthie Lemming. Rod, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Hey, it's great to be here. And did somebody say Huns earlier? Because I'm talking to you from Hungary today.
I hope really? I haven't offended. Yes, I did say Huns. Yeah.
No, we put the Hun in Hungary over here.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Right. The Hungary's evolved a little bit from the Middle Ages, so I don't think it's right. It's problematic anymore.
You get demonized all the time in the left-wing media in the U.S., but when people come over here from America and see what a peaceful society looks like with law and order and controlled borders, they change their tune.
Well, that was the topic of piece, your recent piece, and I was really interested in the recounting you had of conversations with Peter Boghossian, formerly of Portland State University. We've had him on the show. A man of the left, but I mean, very much a believer in free speech and free thought and a free people. And his experience leaving Antifa University there in the Pacific Northwest and coming to Hungary. Tell us about it.
Yeah, back in 2021, I was finishing my first fellowship over here in Budapest at the Danube Institute. And I got an email that fall from Peter. We didn't know each other. We had mutual friends. He said, listen, I've been offered a fellowship at MCC, which is a college here in Budapest. It's associated with conservatives. He said, look, I'm not a conservative, but I'm curious to come over there. But I hear in the media that Hungary is this far-right fascist country. Is it true? I said, look, Peter, you're going to find if you come over here that you are far more free to speak your mind as an atheist and as a leftist here in Viktor Orban's Hungary than at your own university in America. So he came over, and I ran into him for the first time in person when I came back for a second fellowship. And Peter said, man, you are absolutely right. They let me say whatever I want to. They told me that they want their students to be challenged by someone from the left, by someone who doesn't believe in God. He said, you're right. I have so much more freedom here than I ever did at Portland State.
I mean, it's such an indictment of what the supposedly some of the best universities in the Western world have become, isn't it?
Oh, it really is. And, you know, I talk to other expatriates who live here, who are from the U.S. or from elsewhere in Western Europe, and they still get emails and phone calls from people saying, are you okay there? Or the Brown March? And we keep trying to tell them, you have so much more freedom of speech, freedom to do what you want here in Hungary, despite what the media say.
Well, and it was, and you mentioned it, secure border, because that's one of the reasons that Hungary has been cast by Western media as it has, because Orban was aligned with Trump, and they were both talking about border security, and Orban was advancing the interests of border security in Hungary, and so they were perceived as, you know, they just turned Orban and like they did Bolsonaro into, you know, Trump in Eastern Europe, Trump in South America. That's what they do.
Yeah, that's right. And I remember a couple of years ago, I was in Paris on a book tour in France, and everybody there was terrified of civil war coming, of the suburbs, which are full of Islamic militants blowing up. And I realized when I was there in the capital of France that Viktor Orban is right. If you want to have law and order in your society and keep the peace, you need to have secure borders, and you need to keep Middle Eastern migrants out. That's something that's very dangerous to say here in Europe. You get demonized for it. But I tell you, when people come over from London, from Paris, from Rome, they're always amazed by how Budapest still feels like Europe. You can still walk around. You don't see beggars everywhere. You don't see migrants waiting to pick your pocket. It feels normal.
Are there any college protests going on there?
No, none at all.
Really?
But if they wanted to have them, they could. That's the thing. There's a significant opposition here in the capital city to the Orban government. Budapest is a liberal capital, and they have protests all the time. They even have a gay pride march, even though Hungary does not accept gay marriage. They have a gay pride march. Nobody cares. It is a free country.
So, I mean, are there, not to get too much into Hungarian politics, but just this picture of Orban in the West is interesting. You know, the propagandizing versus the reality that you're describing being there. So, I mean, you're obviously a small L liberal person philosophically. So, are there things that the Orban administration is doing that are concerning to you, that beyond sort of like the typical big government overreaches? I mean, things that have any sort of fascistic overtones.
No, that they drop the F-bomb all the time. I will tell you one thing, and I hear this from a lot of conservatives in Hungary who vote Orban. They're really concerned about corruption, about people who are close to the government getting sweetheart deals, things like that. I don't speak the Hungarian language, but I hear it enough from government supporters that I know it must be a real thing. Here's the thing. I talked before the last election to a young evangelical Christian woman I know who is a conservative voter normally. I asked her, who are you going to vote for in the next election? She said, I'm going to vote for Viktor Orban because even though I'm concerned about the corruption, there are two kinds of corruption. The kind of corruption that we think that Orban's party practices is normal. It's not right, but this is a normal sort of corruption that we can take care of in Parliament if we need to. But if the left gets in power, they're going to bring in a very different and more dangerous kind of corruption. They're going to bring in gender ideology. They're going to open the borders and all of the whole George Soros nightmare agenda that we all know so well. So that's why she would rather vote for somebody like Viktor Orban than the left because of the different types of corruption. I think that's really wise. And look, that's why even though I was a Ron DeSantis guy, I'm planning to vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah, no, that's a good way that she puts that too. There's the two different kinds of corruption. We don't really think of corruption in that sense, the way she described the left's corruption, but it is. That is a pretty sharp way. What should we do about these college campuses? Like in terms of, since there's very few that the conservatives have any say in, Ben Sass in Florida, and a few of the smaller liberal arts schools, but what posture should we take, maybe more than what should we do, in terms of, should we let these campuses cannibalize themselves, let the students cannibalize their fellow travelers in the administration and the professorate and vice versa? Or should we step in and say, this is the path to try to make Harvard again, whatever that means, really, and promote sort of campuses as free marketplaces of ideas, and you encourage presidents to be more stout-hearted when it comes to campus culture and etiquette and the indulgence of these kids? Should we just stand back and let it go up in flames, or should we do something?
Well, I have to say that as a conservative who just despises wokeness, I'm happy to let them sit back, let these campus administrators reap what they have sown. I don't think we should be too quick to rush in there and save them from the disaster they've created for themselves. But at some point, it has to stop. I think something really effective was just announced yesterday. A group of, 12 federal judges signed a letter saying that, Did you hear about that? They're not going to take more clerks from Columbia. Not just Columbia Law School, but if you've gone to Columbia at all, they won't take you because they're worried about how you might have been indoctrinated. I think that's the sort of thing that's going to really put a damper on all this stuff, is when these little brats get told that they can't have their fun on campus, trash in the place, and then go into their cushy jobs as federal law clerks or in big business, when these universities like Harvard, Yale, Columbia, and so on began suffering a price on their brand. That's what's really going to stop it.
Yeah, no, I mean the 13 federal, it was 13, I think, but federal judges, saying we're not taking any clerks or from our alma mater. These are Columbia. I think many of them were Columbia grads too. So this is sort of a policing your own schools kind of thing too. That's perhaps an easier challenge to issue than trying to deal with the Ivy League in total, or trying to deal with all of academia. But just get after your own school. Make sure that you're providing some stewardship for your school and organizing some alumni to do the same, right?
That's right. And I think that these universities, the Ivies, and some prominent state universities like UC Berkeley, UCLA, have benefited for far too long from their reputation. Well, now we on the right, I think, would do ourselves a lot of good and do these universities a lot of good to publicize the anti-Semitism, the violence, and all these terrible things going down on campus, and say to parents, is this really what you want your kid to be taught? And I think right now there's a great piece on the tablet.org, I think it is, a magazine, online magazine. Park McDougall did it, going into the financing behind these campus protests. A lot of it is coming from, surprise, George Soros, the Rockefeller Foundation, and a whole group of 501c3s tied to the Obama administration. This did not just come from nowhere.
No, the Pritzker family is also involved in that. We have talked about that, and so Trump a couple of weeks ago posted this video talking about what he plans to do with respect to these colleges and universities if he's elected, and it wasn't to do more student loan forgiveness, taxing the endowments, these in many cases, multi-billion-dollar endowments that the universities enjoy, start to hit them financially, just as perhaps some of their historical donors are hitting them financially. Maybe a 1-2 punch starts to be part of the wake-up call.
Yeah, a couple of years ago at the NatCon conference in Miami, J.D. Vance spoke. He was then running for Senate. He's now a senator. And the topic of his speech was the universities are the enemy. And he called out everything we're now seeing on campus. He said it was coming. And I really, really hope that Trump chooses Senator Vance as his running mate, because J.D. and I have been friends since 2016. He's the real deal. And I think he'll get in there and he'll push through taxing endowments. That's one of the things he said he would like to do. I think we could get some real muscle in a second Trump administration that wasn't always there in the first one.
Yeah, maybe J.D. Vance could announce, since he's a Yale guy, that he's not hiring any kids from Yale, or to start that ball rolling too. The piece that I referenced that you wrote over at EuropeanConservative.com also had an interesting review of something that Roger Scrutin had said back in the late 60s during another period of campus and societal unrest. And it's reminiscent of this op-ed from Elie Wiesel's son, Elisha Wiesel, that was in USA Today a couple of days ago, and I can't stop talking about it because it was just so well done. And one of the things he said is, where are the academics to do what a university is supposed to do, which is to educate young people, I should say. All these people that are running around saying things that are just demonstrably false, in addition to vile, but just demonstrably false. So where are the historians? Where are the academics to provide intellectual leadership on campus to say something to instruct these young people on what they don't seem to understand? Now, many will just scream you down, obviously, because this is all temper tantrum politics. But I mean, in terms of the classroom where you have some dominion, and in terms of the public square where you have some opportunity, you don't see any intellectual leadership from academics. Very little.
You don't, and I'll tell you, I'll give you a couple of examples that say to me where we are in America on this. A friend of mine named Joshua Katz is one of the top classics professors in the country, and he was kicked out of Princeton. Right, exactly, because he stood up to some black racist on campus, and they drove him out. The administration stood behind him. Earlier, a guy named Nick Christakis and his wife Erica at Yale, Erica Christakis had sent out a memo, an email to Yale students saying that maybe it wasn't the university's role to tell them what Halloween costumes they could and couldn't wear. Well, there's huge campus protest erupted against her, saying you should be taking care of us. If you go on YouTube and look up Yale Halloween 2015, you'll see poor Nick Christakis on campus trying to defend his wife, trying to have a reasonable dialogue with the students, and the students are screaming at him. They're yelling, they're crying, they're pulling their clothes. They don't want dialogue at all. And the Yale administration stood with the students there. This is what I'm talking about, that the university leadership is so craven and so given over to progressivism that when professors will stand up and take a stand for classical liberal values of free speech, they get shouted down, they get run out of the university. They end up like Peter Boghossian and having to withdraw from Portland State because he couldn't stand it anymore.
Rod Dreher, his Substack is at Rod Dreher, Dreher. Contributing editor and former senior editor for the American Conservative, author of New York Times bestsellers, including Live Not by Lies, The Benedict Option, and The Little Way of Ruthie Lemming. Rod, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
Oil investments involve a high degree of risk and actual results may vary.
Oil and natural gas keep going up as the Russia conflict escalates. Get in on the next major oil boom now and help the U.S. with your patriotic investment that can potentially pay you monthly income for up to 20 or more years. That's the sound of a producing oil well and the sound of a smart investment. If you're an SEC accredited investor and have at least $25,000 liquid now, you can take advantage of Encore Energy's projects and a huge tax savings for this year. If you invest in oil and natural gas, you're allowed to write off nearly 100% of your investment in the first year. Goldman Sachs is projecting oil to go up to $100 a barrel, and natural gas is the fuel of the future and trading at record prices. Call 800-287-6691. Encore Energy is a major investor and experienced operator in its core area of operations. Call now and learn how to deduct 100% of your investment and create 20 or more years of potential monthly income. Call 800-287-6691. That's 800-287-6691.
Parents, grandparents, you might want to be sitting down because this is amazing news. Imagine the student in your family not asking you for money to pay for college, or better yet, not getting into years and years of debt. How's this possible? Scholarships.com, a trusted and widely used scholarship platform that helps your student find scholarships and navigate the financial aid process. Get help to pay for college through a personalized list of scholarships that your student actually qualifies for. Better yet, every scholarship is vetted to ensure accuracy. And now the best part, drum roll please, it's absolutely free. Go to scholarships.com today. Both students and parents can join for free, and within minutes, receive your list of personalized scholarship matches. Check out the wealth of information and resources available at no cost, and read the fantastic reviews from other scholarship winners. Scholarships.com has helped over 23 million students and families find scholarships to help pay for college, and will help you too. Join scholarships.com today for free. That's scholarships.com.
All right, you've heard about QC Kinetics. It's an alternative to going